Pasiklausykime išminties knygos. Apie aną naktį tėvams mūsų buvo iš anksto paskelbta, kad jie, sužinoję, kas jiems pažadėta, vis būtų viltingi. Tad tavo tauta pasikliaudama laukė teisiųjų palaimos, o priešų žlugimo. Nubausdamas priešus, o mus pasišaukęs, išaukštinai tautą, jai suteikiai garbę. Pavojams praėjus, gerų tėvų sūnūs laisvai ėmė švęsti aukojimo šventę. Visi jie vieningai įsipareigojo laikytis įstatymo, Dievo teisyno, kartu džiaugtis laimę, vargus drauge kęsti. Paskui užgiedojo šventas tėvų giesmes. Tai Dievo žodis. Atliepiamoji psalmė. Atsakote, laiminga tauta, kurią pasirinko viešpats. Džiūgaukit viešpačiui teikdami šlovę teisieji. Teisiesiems garbinti dera. Laiminga tauta, kuri savo dievų viešpatį laiko. Toji tauta, kuri išrinkta būti jo nuosavybė. Laiminga tauta, kurią pasirinko viešpats. Viešpaties akys žvelgia į tuos, kur jo bijo, kurie tikis jo malonės. Jis jų gyvybę nuo mirties saugo ir bado metu pamaitina. Laiminga tauta, kurią pasirinko viešpats. Mes jo didžiai išsiilgę, jis mūsų rėmėjas ir skydas. Viešpatie, būk tu mums gailestingas, mesgi taip tavim tikim. Laiminga tauta, kurią pasirinko viešpats. Pasiklausykime šventojo apaštalo Pauliaus laiško žydams. Broliai, tikėjimas laiduoja mums tai, ko viliamės, įrodo tikrovę, kurios nematome. Per jį protėviai gavo gerą liudijimą. Tikėdamas, Abraomas paklausė liepimo keliauti į šalį, kurią turėjo paveldėti, ir išvyko, nežinodamas, kur einas. Tikėdamas, jis apsigyveno pažadėtoje žemėje, tarytum svetimoje, įsikūręs palapinėse su Izaoku ir Jokūbu, to paties pažado paveldėtojais. Mat, jis laukė miesto su tvirtais pamatais, kurio statytojas ir kūrėjas būtų Dievas. Tikėdama ir pati Sara gavo galią tapti nėščia, nepaisant senyvo amžiaus. Ji pasitikėjo tuo, kuris buvo davęs pažadą. Ir todėl iš vieno vyro ir netgi apmirusio gimė palikuonys, gausūs tartum dangaus žvaigždės ir nesuskaitomi, kaip jūros pakrantės smiltys. Tai Dievo žodis.
Alleluja, 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 alleluja. Udėk
Bėkite ir būkite pasirengę, nes nežinote, kurie valanda ateis žmogaus sūnus. Alleluja, alleluja, alleluja. Viešpats su jumis. Pasiklausykite Šventosios Evangelijos pagal Matą. Jėzus kalbėjo savo mokiniams. Tai būtinai jūsų strenos sujuostos ir žiburiai uždegti. Jūs būkite panašus į žmones, kurie laukia savo šeimininko grįžtančio iš vestuvių, kad kai tik jis parvyks ir pasibels, to jie atidarytų. Laimingi tarnai, kuriuos sugrįžęs šeimininkas ras budinčius. Iš tiesų sakau jums, jis susodins juos prie stalo ir ėdamas aplinkui patarnaus jiems. Jeigu jis sugrįžtų antrosios ar trečiosios naktys sargybos metu ir rastų jūs budinčius, laimingi jie. Taigi girdėjote Viešpaties žodį. Vėl noriu atsiprašyti, bet pamokslą duosiu angliškai, tai gal visi biskį supras. Ir aš suprasiu, bet gal geriau. 10 days ago in Kansas, the breaking news caught me off guard. I was expecting something political, something on the world stage, some natural disaster. But the news in Kansas was actually good news. That's what caught me off guard. The news was about a statue that was unveiled at the U.S. Capitol. Thinking, why would Kansas be concerned about a statue unveiled at the U.S. Capitol? Because it was a statue of one of their heroes. A hero from Kansas. Actually, a heroine from Kansas. Amelia Earhart. You may know her story. She was born in 1897. She was a pilot and an educator, an instigator of sorts. She had crossed the Atlantic by herself in an airplane and was in the midst of trying to fly around the world in 1937 at the age of 40 when her plane disappeared somewhere in the Pacific. 2 years later, she was declared dead. All kinds of stories, all kinds of conspiracy stories about what happened to Amelia. But she's a hero. And all Kansas is proud to have her standing now in the U.S. Capitol. Got me thinking about what makes a person a hero. After all, you would think it's recognizing accomplishments, and she never finished her final task. But it must be her sense of adventure. I got thinking, a hero. Well, there are many heroes. Storybooks are full of heroes. Then there are real-life heroes. War heroes. The astronauts going to the moon are heroes. Even athletes who break down barriers of racism or break down records kept for years, they're considered heroes too. Some years ago, I remember a third grader, about 8, 9 years old, was giving a little talk in his class and talking about heroes. And he said, "My hero is my dad." So what makes a hero? One who acts courageously, for sure. One who acts for a noble purpose, for sure. One who steps out of the expected behavior, who steps out of the comfortable, who steps out of the ordinary, and breaks down barriers to create a new place for others to exist, for a new place for others to be. In general, I think all those things are true of heroes. We have many heroes that we recognize in the secular world, in history. They act from something that is almost inexplainable, something that comes out of them that makes them different. But then there are spiritual heroes too. The Bible is full of them. Spiritual heroes who act not only out of something from within themselves, but they are driven by something with their relationship with God. Earlier, many of you were at the presentation on prayer. Prayer is that relationship, and that relationship leads people to act out of that relationship. This makes them spiritual heroes. We look in the Old Testament, we have people like Noah, who builds the ark, a hero. We have Moses, who frees the people out of Egypt, a hero. King David, a young king, a hero. Conquers Goliath, of course he was a hero. We have the apostles, all of them, many of them martyred. They're all heroes. Even Mary could be considered a hero. And even Mary Magdalene. How about Zacchaeus, the little guy who climbs the tree to see Jesus, and Jesus invites himself to his house? He too is a spiritual hero. In today's second reading from the letter to the Hebrews, we hear about another Old Testament hero. This is the first century writing about something that someone who lived 1,000, even 1,500 years before, Abraham. And he's presented here to the people as a hero to remember. But he was actually quite ordinary. He was a Hebrew, not very educated, somewhat of a businessman because he was a herdsman. He was quite devoted, had a wife, no children. She was barren. And then something happens. He's told that Sarah's going to have a child. He's an old man. She's an old lady. How is this possible? Then they're told that it's going to be a boy, and Isaac is born. And in the midst of all that joy, Abraham is led to take that child to an altar, as if though to offer that child, an only child, a awaited child, up to God. And he's ready to take that child's life as a sacrifice, like a goat on an altar. And he's stopped by a voice. Strange stories. Ordinary people. And then he's told to pack up his family and to go to another land, a foreign place. We struggle to travel from one city to another. How long does it take you to pack up just for a week's vacation in Kennebunk? How much anxiety does that cause you? And yet he's asked to pack up his whole family in a time when things are difficult and to leave everything that is familiar, his small town, the people he knows, his herd behind. And he goes. We'd call him crazy. He must have been a lunatic, at least bipolar. He needs therapy. Give him some pills. Something is wrong with this man. Why would he put his family and himself in such danger? We have the answer in the reading today itself. Years after Abraham lived, Abraham is told to leave his land, to Kennebunk. In faith, he leaves. Sarah is told to accept the child. To Kennebunk. In faith, she accepts that child. This is the unique gift that spiritual heroes have. It's the gift of faith. And not some childish faith, not some intellectual gymnastics type of faith where we try to figure everything out. Not a faith that is about embracing something dangerous that is totally unknown, out in the blue. It's not a faith that gives easy answers to difficult solutions in ordinary life. It's not a faith that fixes the problems that we create. It's a different faith. The Latin and the Greek form of the word faith, it translates to in confidence or trust in. To have faith is to trust in something, someone bigger, more powerful than ourselves. That's faith. And that's why it's weakened in the world that we live today. Because we live at a time when we're told to trust in ourselves, to trust in our government, to trust in our treasury, to trust in everything that we think is important that we create. And faith says we must trust in God. That's what a spiritual hero does. A story about a Jesuit student. And I use Jesuit being a Franciscan. I'm able to do this because this is a true story. As you may know, Jesuits have a long period of formation, of training. And during that period, they not only study, but they are sent off on mission for a year at a time, 2 years at a time. This way, by the time they're 80, as old as Abraham, they might be ordained. They've shortened that a little bit today because of the shortage of priests. But there was a young Jesuit in training who was sent to Calcutta to spend time with Mother Teresa's sisters, ministering to the homeless in Calcutta, to the poor, to those dying on the streets. This is the ministry of the sisters in Calcutta. He was doing okay and asking questions of his own vocation. And Mother Teresa asked him one day, "Son, what can I do for you?" And he looked to her and said, "Sister, pray that I have clarity." How often have we prayed for clarity? Clarity of our decisions or options, clarity of the past, clarity of the future, clarity of understanding. We'd like things to be clear for us. So I could understand this young Jesuit. If he were a Franciscan, he wouldn't ask for that. But as a Jesuit, he would want to have clarity. That's what Jesuits are. They have the answers, right? There's a Jesuit coming here this week, isn't there? Is he here yet? Do not say any of this to him, please. We don't want to have an ecclesiastical war on our hands. Clarity, he asks. He's probably wondering or praying for clarity of his vocation. I can understand that. Mother Teresa looks to him, smiles, laughs a little, and says, "No." Exactly what you would expect a nun to do. No. She says, clarity is the last thing that we cling to. She says, look at me. I've never had clarity in anything. I had to learn to trust. I'll pray that you trust. I'll pray that you trust God. I'll pray that you know God's plan for you. I'll pray that you trust. As we embark on our week together, that will be our prayer, that we trust. Not in ourselves, not in our kingdoms, not in our treasures, not in one another, and frankly, not even in the church, but that we trust God, that we trust that God has a plan, that we trust that God's plan includes us. With this kind of faith, we may find the courage to step away from the barriers of our own safety, the things that keep us comfortable. We may find that we are able to step into the unknown, not blindly, but with confidence, because we trust that we are stepping into God's plan. As I look at us, many of us have a few gray hairs, and we may say, I'm too old to be a hero today. Abraham was very old, as was Sarah, and they trusted. That's what made them spiritual heroes. Things that we could be, people that we can be. I'd like to lead you through this week with a prayer with words that you know very well. We pray it every time we gather for Mass, just 2 small phrases. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done. Words from the Our Father that open ourselves up to receive God's plan in our lives. We too can be spiritual heroes.